we go. Week 2, FantaSara football. I got sick. My voice is almost gone. I don't care. I got some starts for you. I got some sits. I got some sleepers. I got an 8-team parlay. Let's do it. Right off the bat, we got to talk about which is more embarrassing. The fact that Big Ben and the Steelers tied the Cleveland Browns, or the fact that with that tie, the Cleveland Browns have their best start to a season since 2004. I honestly don't know which one is worse. Also, shout out to the Green Bay Packers medical staff, because if any of you guys saw Aaron Rodgers' post-game interview, I'm pretty sure he couldn't feel his face, let alone his knee. So, good job.
I went in the locker room, did all the tests, and then I was in our indoor facility trying to get it loosened up. But I knew once I got back on the field, the adrenaline started going, I'd be able to hang in there.
What was the injury?
My knee.
Adrenaline. So with those out of the way, I have some quarterbacks for you that I think you should start this week in week 2. I have a few that you should sit, and I have a couple of sleepers, so we'll go ahead and get going with that. Starting this week, I have Phillip Rivers against Buffalo. Okay, first of all, if Joe Flacco can throw 3 touchdowns against the Bills, anybody can throw 3 touchdowns against the Bills. I like both quarterbacks in the Kansas City-Pittsburgh game. Big Ben, we just talked about, probably a little embarrassed that he tied the Browns. He's going back to Heinz Field. Last year against the Chiefs at home, he put up 34 fantasy points. I think Big Ben is a solid starter this week. Patrick Mahomes. The Steelers also allowed 20 fantasy points last week to Tyrod Taylor. I think it's going to be a high-scoring AFC matchup. All right, so now I have a few quarterbacks I think you should sit this week. I'm going to start with Fitzmagic. Okay? My grandma could throw for 400 yards against the Saints defense, so calm down. He's about to play Eagles defense next week. That pass rush isn't going to give him time to do anything. Please sit Ryan Fitzpatrick and stop calling him Fitzmagic. It was one game. Move on. My second sit is Cam Newton against the Atlanta Falcons. That offensive line is breaking down. He doesn't have Greg Olsen, and historically, Cam just doesn't play well in Atlanta, so I'm actually benching him myself in my fantasy league. And then my last sit for the week is Dak Prescott against the Giants. The offensive line isn't what it was last year. Dak Prescott hasn't thrown for over 200 yards in 7 out of the last 9 games, and collectively as a team, the Cowboys haven't scored 10 points in 5 out of the last 9 games. So, sit Dak, and we all know America's team is the Broncos anyway. I have 2 sleepers for this week. My first one is Tyrod Taylor against the Saints. Again, that Saints defense is just awful. So I like Tyrod Taylor against the Saints. I also like Case Keenum against the Raiders this week. Raiders are on a short week. They just played the Rams on Thursday. Case Keenum actually looked pretty good. What? We might have another quarterback in Denver? Moving on to running backs, my starters for this week. James Conner against Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, Le'Veon Bell is still gone. James Conner is getting receptions as well as rushing yards, and he's facing a Chiefs defense that allowed over 100 rushing yards, 189 passing yards, and a touchdown to the Chargers running backs last week. So I'm all in on James Conner. I like Jordan Howard versus Seattle. Even though the Bears blew that 20-0 lead, you have to admit that the Bears offense does look better. So I do like him against Seattle. My most favorable matchup that I have this week is Christian McCaffrey. Again, especially if you're in those PPR leagues, he gets rushing yards, he gets receptions. Again, Greg Olsen is out, so I expect Christian McCaffrey to get a lot more touches. Atlanta's also going to struggle. Their linebacker Dion Lewis was just placed on IR. He's great in pass coverage, so I really think Christian McCaffrey is going to have a lot more receptions this week. My sits for this week at running back are Jamal Williams versus Minnesota. He got most of the snaps against Chicago, and he still only finished with 47 yards last week, and this Minnesota defense is going to be tough. Talking about tough defenses, Derrick Henry versus Houston. He had 29 fewer snaps than Dion Lewis last week, and that Texans defense is just going to be tough. Sleepers this week at running back. If Devontae Freeman is hurt, you want to have Tevin Coleman in your lineup. He'll be getting most of those carries against Carolina. Phillip Lindsay also showed out last week. Shout out, Colorado kid. And they're going against Oakland again. So Oakland on that short week. I feel like Phillip Lindsay is going to have some reception. So again, a PPR league might be a good sleeper for that. I also like Austin Eckler versus the Bills as a flex. All right, and finally for this week, I did an 8-team parlay. I did a 10-teamer last week, but I couldn't upload the video. So here are my picks for this week. I've got the Ravens -1, Chargers -7.5, Eagles -3. The Saints early this morning were -12.5, and I wasn't really feeling that, but the line moved, so now I have the Saints at -8.5. I have the Giants +3, the Niners -5.5, the Texans -2, and the Falcons -5.5. So we shall see. Thank you guys so much for watching, and good luck in your fantasy leagues this week. Surprise! I screwed up. The Raiders are on a short week, but because they played on Monday, not on Thursday. All right, fine. My first video was bound to be a fuck up somewhere in there, but just support me, okay? I'm doing the best I can. I still know what I'm talking about. Don't think I'm not credible because I mixed up my days of the week, okay? Bottom line, Raiders suck anyway. Short week, long week, season, whatever. It's the Raiders, so, I mean, just subscribe, okay?